Hello everyone, welcome to today's whimsical suspense drama. But don't leave just yet, because what's coming next will be an unexpected laugh. At this moment, the detective felt like Wan Qiushi had vanished like a pizza, hidden somewhere in the mountains. Talk about a master of disguise. He and He Giant started to dig into the truth, with He Giant thinking to himself, do I really need to dig a pit to become famous? He gave his sidearm and badge to the detective, jumped in the pit, thinking, it's a muddy feast. Suddenly, the detective spotted Zhiwei, covered in mud as if he'd just emerged from a mud bath, claiming he had been lost in the mountains for 18 months. What a little lost angel. The detective finally realized Zhiwei's hidden kindness had shown. Was he a transformer? What on earth happened that night to turn him into a killer? It's like a plot twist right out of a movie. With these thoughts, the detective completely ignored He Giant and drove off to follow Zhiwei's path to fame. While He Giant crawled out of the dirt, banging his chest, he dashed to the detective's house for a showdown, only to run into the detective's ex-wife, learning that she had already bolted from this mystery feast long ago. Thus, He Giant was left dumbfounded, realizing he had been chatting with the detective's imaginary partner. He Giant finally understood that the detective might really be a crazy genius. Could it be inspiration from the passage of time? At this time, the detective, like a headless fly, tried luck at Girl's restaurant, loving the dishes, a true foodie. He ate until nearly bursting, found no clues, then hurried to Zhiwei's precinct for gun info, only to find solving cases was a battle. He discovered that the gun management was all over the place. What a party of chaos. After working hard and yielding nothing, he figured he might as well return to the mountains to experience modern art. Don't blame me for clearing. As he recreated the crime scene, the truth slowly unfolded like petals blooming in the rain. Zhiwei had lost his gun while chasing a South Asian. Wan Qiushi insisted on reporting it, but for the soon-to-be-promoted Zhiwei, losing his gun was a big deal. He really wanted to rise up. Zhiwei, left with no options, was taken over by the beast within and ended up smashing Wan Qiushi. What a dark, handsome man. He buried the body and grabbed the gun, but when facing the South Asian man, he held back, fearing bullets would reveal his identity. Was a dark night in distress. Back at the precinct, he frantically tampered with electronic records, wanting to transform into a wacky muscle man, unaware that the truth had already arrived. He used Wang's gun for a lavish heist, killing 2 birds, ignoring the detective's doubts. The detective solved the case, sensing Zhiwei's demons would target the boy. Plot twist. He hurried to find He Giant, only to discover he had fallen into dangerous territory, as masked Zhiwei beat him up. What an elite move. Although Zhiwei aimed his gun at him, he couldn't find He Giant's sidearm. What a fruitless endeavor. No wonder he's a muddy survivor. He Giant survived, and the detective now knew all truth's divine power rise. Convince He Giant to catch Zhiwei for ballistics tests, easy as Baji eating fairy fruit. But after all this, He Giant no longer trusted the detective, feeling he could now dance with madness. No matter how the detective sweet-talked, He Giant wasn't buying it. His fears made him too afraid to pursue. What a fruitless competition. Eager to get his sidearm back, the detective, fearing He Giant couldn't handle the fight, kept the gun and drove off. A true clash of wits and courage. Ultimately, He Giant returned to the precinct, hesitating to report the lost gun, but his girlfriend Kiki stopped him. How comical. Kiki reminded him of his coming promotion, warning against blemishes. She knows hearts are far apart. Therefore, He Giant took away his girlfriend's gun and then began the chase for Zhiwei. What an intense showdown. However, when he attempted to check Zhiwei's sidearm, the precinct's file numbers had vanished like a magician's trick. What a spectacle. Suddenly, Zhiwei claimed to find Wan Qiushi's fault and invited He Giant to act unconventional. At the scene, they did meet an armed South Asian. The detective anxiously followed during capture, like a top director. He raised his gun, told Zhiwei to drop his weapon, yet He Giant pointed his gun at the detective, a pretty boy turned villain. At that moment of stalemate, the South Asian man shouted the truth about Zhiwei killing Wan Qiushi, and Zhiwei decisively shot him. What a cold-blooded intern. The detective aimed to capture Zhiwei, but was struck by several shots from behind by He Giant. Talk about her sudden turn from firefighter to god. At this moment, Zhiwei hurt He Giant, and the detective summoned every last ounce of strength for a counterattack, finally taking down Zhiwei. What a heroic feat. However, the story didn't end. He Giant's soul left his body, becoming an inner demon. This demon made him summon his girlfriend to lie, covering all perfectly and instantly becoming a dark oracle. The severely injured detective watched this unfold, feeling utterly powerless, and ultimately collapsed in a pool of blood. What a tragic scene. As the sole survivor, Zhiwei followed his inner demon's instructions, dialing his girlfriend to wrap things up and switching guns at the scene. What a charming villain. The film ended in a tense and complex atmosphere, leaving viewers perplexed about how Zhiwei would navigate escaping the final gun switch. What a twist. In fact, right until the end, Zhiwei was still frantically switching guns, which showed he himself hadn't quite figured out how to cover his tracks. What a comical twist. Dark suspense the writer left for the audience was brilliantly portrayed. Let's recap. Zhiwei chased the South Asian man and lost his gun, then killed Wen Qiuju, perfectly portraying a character biography. Subtitles. Zhiwei used this gun to carry out 2 robbery homicides, attempting to frame South Asians, which is truly hilarious. Because he feared the bullets might expose his identity, he was too scared to shoot in public. What a coward. Time still, he planned to kill Zhiwei with Wen Qiuju's gun, then the South Asian with his classic sword-fighting tale. Of course, the mutual destruction plan failed, as the detective survived, leaving a heartbroken tale. A poignant, full-circle ending.